That's enough. All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, on this sine die day, Monday, April 10th, we are so pleased, or I particularly am pleased, to have one of my very own pastors, Pastor Brian Zimmerman of Streetlight Christian Fellowship and Transformation Center in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of the Senator from the 46th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Good morning. Let's pray together. Our gracious Lord and God, we bow before you today and recognize that we depend on you and your guidance in all that we do. We pray for our senators as they seek to represent the great people of our state. May you continue to bless them with wisdom, discernment, unity, and the courage to do the work that you've entrusted them to do. Today, as they close the 445th legislative session, we give you thanks for all the hard work they have put forth on behalf of the people of Maryland. May you honor their desire to keep improving life for all residents. Although there are many perspectives and many opinions on how things should be done, we are grateful for the collaboration and the collaborative spirit over these last few months, and may that kind of synergy thrust us into greater days ahead as we navigate the best pathway going forward for our state. In the Holy Scriptures, in the book of Proverbs, the wisdom book, it gives us a promise. And with every promise of God, there is a premise that comes with the promise. The premise is what we do. The promise is only what God can do. And so it says in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, the premise, trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do and everywhere you go. And the promise is He's the one who will lead us on the right pathway. May the pathway ahead be one that leads to greater days. May it lead to a better future. May it lead to a place of healing and hope. We are confident in the fact that the God who got us here will be the God who will get us there. With that in mind, we lift up the men and women of this Senate, our delegates, our Lieutenant Governor Miller and Governor Westmore, as they carry the torch and lead us down the pathway to even greater destinations for all of our people here in the wonderful state of Maryland. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Senators, if there's no objections, would appreciate if we could journalize Pastor Zimmerman's wonderful prayer. He is both a words and deeds. The Transformation Center that's been created in Brooklyn, Maryland is truly, it's a remarkable place serving communities with individuals with needs, significant needs. Every year they have so many incredible events to invest in people and really express their word in action. And it's remarkable. So thank you, sir. Thank you for being here with us today. We're honored. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? Close. Do we have almost? All right, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session on this calendar day sine die. All right, let's go ahead and start with introductions. Do we have introductions today? I imagine we'll have lots of introductions as the day goes forward, but anybody say? Chair recognizes the senator from Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two guests in the chamber today. I'm going to ask them to wave to us. They are Erica Robo, who is the Assistant HR Director in the City of Frederick, and Catherine Visser, who's representing the Osherman Foundation.
Excellent. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Senator. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could just welcome our Sine Die student pages for today.
Please, Senator may proceed.
Thank you. So we have our all-star student pages back for our final day. We have first Alvaro Serran Ruiz from Prince George's County, District 24, a student at Eleanor Roosevelt High School.
Welcome back.
May Cruz, Washington County, District 2, a student at Barbara Ingram School of the Arts. Aiden Elgin from Kent County, District 36, a student at Kent County High School. Amelia Farrar, Anne Arundel County, District 30, a student at Severna Park High School. Catherine Harris from Howard County, District 12, a student at Long Reach High School. Alexander Hosenkale from Anne Arundel County, District 33, a student at Crofton High School. Alice Hummer from Anne Arundel County, District 32, Meade High School. Hayden Kelly, Calvert County, District 27, a student at Huntington High School. Ajoa Okra, Montgomery County, District 14, a student at Damascus High School. James Pearson III, Baltimore City, District 44, a student at Vivian T. Thomas Medical Arts Academy. Madeline Schmidt, Charles County, District 28, a student at La Plata High School. And finally, Jaden Walker, Prince George's County, District 23, a student at Bowie High School. Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome back, Pages, the best and brightest. You all had a great year. We're so pleased to have you today. It's going to be a long, fun day with a lot of work to do. So enjoy it. Hopefully you brought some running shoes, and we're going to make it work. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please offer a warm welcome to our members, our leaders from the Maryland Fire and Rescue Service. They're joining us in the gallery this morning.
Excellent. Welcome to the Fire and Rescue Service. We have some of our fire and rescue folks adjacent over here to our left, at least on the rescue side. All right. Any further introductions? No? All right. It's a light day so far. So be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's go ahead and get these bills read across. We'll start with the House bills passed in the House. This is calendar number 40. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 84, Delegate Forbes, Maryland Nonprofit Development Center Program, Nonprofit Industry Micro Bridge, Nimble Account Funding, Rules.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the Senate Rules Committee. We'll be doing a Rules Committee meeting here in just a moment so we can get stuff moving. It'll probably be, let's go ahead and do the capital budget first, actually. Let's start there. We've got Special Order Calendar number 53. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 201, the Speaker, Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2023. Question is on the adoption of the 267 committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right. Question is on the 267 committee amendments. Just a couple. Let's recognize the chair of our Capital Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, I present to you House Bill 201, the capital budget of the state of Maryland. I would just ask the body to follow along with this, the committee reprint, and that'll help sort of go along with the amendments. As you all know, and as I've stated, the committee took actions that are fair, balanced, and ensures that the capital budget of the state of Maryland invests in all parts of the state. In approaching our work, we focused on a number of areas. One, it's addressing our infrastructure needs. Two, this created tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs. We assisted our communities, our higher education institutions, our hospitals, local governments, and non-profit organizations. And we did all this, colleagues, while remaining within our debt affordability limits. But let's just go to the amendments, and I'll just remind everybody that these are the Senate amendments, the 267 amendments. And if you have any additional amendments, please keep it toward the end and draw them to the committee reprint. And with that, Mr. President, with your permission, I'll get to work on this.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, amendment number 1 is on page 1, and it's technical. I move amendment number 1.
All right, question is on the First Amendment. Any discussion? Any objections with the First Amendment? We won't be doing it by one on each of the 267, but on this one we will. So without objection, the amendment is adopted. Senator may proceed.
So what I'm going to do, Mr. President, I'm just going to read the page numbers that they can look at, and then I'll read the amendments. So from pages 3 to 11, amendments 2 to 6 pertain to the Historic St. Mary's City Commission, the Board of Public Works, the Judiciary, the Military Department, and the Interagency Commission on School Construction. Amendment number 2 adds funding for the project in Historic St. Mary's City. In the Board of Public Works, Amendment 3 adds funds for a project. Amendment 4 reduces bond funding for a project that is already, so it modifies funding that's already fully funded. Amendment 5 adds funding for a project in the Military Department, in the Interagency Commission on School Construction. Amendment 6 modifies bond funding for public school construction program, which is already fully funded. Mr. President, I move adoption of amendments 2 through 6.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of amendments 2 through 6. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, amendments 2 through 6 are adopted. Senator may proceed.
Colleagues, from pages 13 to 21, which are amendments 7 through 16, they pertain to the University System of Maryland, Baltimore City Community College, Morgan State University, and the Department of the Environment. For the University System of Maryland institutions, amendments 7 through 13 add and increase funding for various projects. Amendment 4 adds deferred maintenance funding for the Baltimore City Community College. Amendment 15 adds funding for Morgan State University, and Amendment 16 increases funding for Department of Environment program. Mr. President, I move adoption of committee amendments 7 through 16.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt amendments 7 through 16. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, amendments 7 through 16 are adopted. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you turn your attention to pages 22 through 73, these are amendments 17 through 233. They pertain to miscellaneous grants, programs, and the Maryland Hospital Association. Amendments 17 through 40 alter and add funding for certain miscellaneous grants. Amendments 41 through 231 add miscellaneous grants to various projects. Amendment 232 and 233 increase funding for 2 hospital grants. Mr. President, I would move adoption of 17 through 233, but Mr. President, I would like to separate some out. Colleagues, as you know, we're a part-time legislature, so in an effort to make sure that if members want to take the rule, they can, I'd like to separate out amendments 18, 27, 77, 78, 79, 84, and 233. Mr. President, with the exception of those amendments that I separated, I would move those amendments excluding those.
All right, so just to be clear, we are moving forward, or the chair has moved committee amendments 17 through 233, except not 18, 27, 77, 78, 79, 84, and 233. Any discussion? Any discussion on those amendments? These are the miscellaneous projects. Any objections? Any objections? Without objection, amendments 17 through 33, excluding those listed, are adopted.
Mr. President, I would move to let's take a vote for, and I'm going to be voting in favor of Amendment 18, but let's do that separate.
All right, if we could take up Amendment 18 separately, Amendment 18. Any discussion on the amendment? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, the amendment is adopted. Senator may proceed.
Mr. President, I'd like to take a separate vote alone on Amendment 27.
On Amendment 27, any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, the senator's amendment is adopted.
Mr. President, I would like to take Amendment 77, 78, 79, 84, and 233 and vote them as a group.
All right, that is, Madam Clerk, that's 77, 78, 79, 84, and 233. Any objections? Actually, let's make sure we get it correctly. So these will be as a group. These will be the final ones as a group. Okay, 77 through 79, 84, and 233. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, those amendments are adopted. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we'll now turn our attention to pages 90 through 104 in the committee reprint. Amendment 234 pertains to local Senate initiatives. I'd move adoption of Committee 234.
All right. Chair moves that we adopt Amendment 234. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, Amendment 234 is adopted. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, I would now turn your attention to pages 124 through 136. This pertains to amendments 235 through 267. They apply to pre-authorizations for future years. I would move adoption of committee amendments 235 through 267.
All right. Chair moves that we adopt Amendments 235 through 267. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, Amendments 235 through 267 are adopted.
Mr. President, I move the Senate of Maryland's amendments that we just adopted. I move the amendments and the adoption of favorable committee report.
All right. The chair has moved for the adoption of the favorable committee report as amended. As amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Senator has amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. Give us just a moment, Senator. There's a lot in here, so let's make sure we get it out. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, there's 26 amendments, and this actually reflects the actions of the Senate. There's some brief modifications made by the House of Delegates that we adopted that just affect the House LBIs, legislative bond initiatives. Colleagues, I would just let you know that the House has already concurred with our actions, and this is, so I'm proud to put forth Amendment 1, which is just makes technical changes. I'd move adoption of Amendment number 1. We can do it as one group. Let me go through it and then we'll adopt it. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 pertains to the Department of Natural Resources and miscellaneous grants. Amendments 20 through 21 pertain to local bond initiatives. Amendment 22 pertains to a modification with language when it comes to the public school construction, and amendments 23 through 26 deal with pre-authorizations. Mr. President, I'd move adoption of amendments 1 through 26.
All right. The Senator moves that we adopt the committee amendments listed in front of you. Any discussion on this amendment? Any discussion? Any objections to the adoption of the committee amendments? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 201 is hereby ordered past the third reading. All right, we'll take that one up at the next session here and close that one out. Let's go to Special Order number 54. 54, 5-4. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 6, Delegate Hill, Department of General Services, Energy Conserving Standards, Maryland Sustainability Buildings Act of 2023. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, questions on the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the floor leader. Unless there's, do we have a question? All right, Chair recognizes the minority whip on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President.
On the report, rather, excuse me.
On the report, yeah. So there are no amendments on this, correct? This came out clean?
Will the floor leader yield?
I apologize. Will the floor leader yield for a question?
Senator may proceed.
There are committee amendments. I'm sorry, there are no committee amendments. I apologize. We got both the cross file and the other bills. So yes, no committee amendments.
And can you remind the body why is this necessary?
This is necessary. What basically this bill does is it establishes a framework that allows for us to save money by virtue of reducing energy consumption, and then at the same time is going to help to protect birds by establishing a standard to avoid bird strikes.
So is my understanding, and some folks here were not here the last time we discussed this bill, someone has measured how many birds are killed by striking windows?
I don't have a measure of how many folks how many birds have been killed. What I do know is that this bill is supported by the American Institute of Architects because as it is written, as narrow as it is, it really does provide a low-cost way for us to minimize the number of bird strikes while at the same time conserving some energy based on design. And so we just think it's good policy.
When you describe it as low cost, what do we think the cost will add?
The cost from the design portion of it would be, relatively speaking, if they do a good job on the design of it, there should not be any real significant incremental costs. There are potential cost changes that are there with regard to some of the elements, like for example with the glass, if there were certain design choices that were made, that it could cost more. But again, by virtue of doing the design earlier, you limit the amount of frosted and etched glass, which could have a higher building cost associated with it, by moving them further up in the design of the building where they are less susceptible to bird strikes.
Is this requiring, this is all prospective, correct? Or are we doing any retrofitting?
No, this is for future construction. There are certain elements that are associated with renovation if there is a significant renovation that is going on. And for those that, for 50% or more of the money, for those that we've acquired a building that's a state building, it would apply to that as well. But it does not apply to, but these are, Senator, these are state-owned buildings. It's not leased buildings. It's actually quite narrow as far as the number of buildings that we're talking about.
Do we have an estimate of cost?
The cost, as I mentioned, my understanding is that the cost is not significant as it relates to these design elements. This is from the testimony that I received from the architects who are in support of this bill. When you design it in the way that you don't, such that the costs are negligible, the additional costs.
We've had this bill, how many years by my record, I feel like this bill has been introduced for almost, it's like half a dozen years we've had this bill. Well,
yes, Senator,
why is the time
and in
now?
2019 we passed it, actually. This body passed this piece of legislation in the Senate in 2019. We were here as a part of that conversation then. This bill is actually a little bit more tailored down, and so we have heard it before, and now we're here again.
it just didn't fly in the House in 2019.
Ha. Nice, very nice.
I guess the reason I thought we hadn't passed it is because the arguments against it at the time were so persuasive. I couldn't believe we would pass a bill about saving birds in this way when it doesn't seem to me that there's a lot of evidence. Where's the evidence that this will save? If we don't know how many birds are dying, where's the evidence that this will be saving the birds?
We received a significant amount of testimony from the folks who represent the birders who were very much in support of this testimony. If you did look at it, there really is a strong amount from the Maryland Ornithological Society who were in support of this, who did talk about the estimate number of birds struck, 900,000 residents, non-residents who enjoy bird watching, but that as far as the strength of making sure that we protect our birds and that it's an important part of our, of our state. Making sure. I mean, obviously, it's a part of what we do. We've had real conversations out here about migratory birds and the benefits that they have for us. So there's a significant number of folks who are supportive of it.
Well, I love birds, and I like watching birds. Interesting. One of the things I discovered recently was that my dad loves to go bird watching, which he never really expressed a lot when I was younger, probably because he was busy working, but he likes bird watching. So birds are great, and we all love them. I think, does this bill deal with one of the things that I've read recently, because we've been talking a lot about energy efficiency and renewable energy, and I actually have solar panels on my house, and I know we're trying to promote solar. Sometimes I like the way we're trying to promote it, sometimes I don't. But we do. Solar energy is becoming much more popular, and I've heard that a big leading cause of bird deaths is solar panels. That they have a. Is there anything to do with that? With how we put solar panels on state buildings? Is there anything in this bill about that?
No, this bill does not deal with that specifically, although it does take on a best practice of design. And so, of course, we make sure that will be a part of it. But this one really is more so about those parts of the building and the U.S. Green Building Council's Pilot Credit 55 program that really do deal with the birds in those areas where they strike, which is lower in the buildings.
Okay. I noticed that there's something in the bill about the studying mental health impacts. Do I have that right? It's down. Did I read that wrong?
That's not something that we discussed.
I'll withdraw that question. Yeah. I read that. I think I misread something. And so again, just to retrod one piece of ground, which does not impact historic state buildings because this is prospective.
Yes.
This does not impact any private entities at this time, not yet anyway.
It does not.
Okay. But we really don't have a documentation of how many bird lives will be saved by doing this either, correct?
That is correct. I do not have the specific number.
Or an estimate. I mean, I'm not expecting a itemized, but I remember in 2019 there was discussion that like 5 million birds are killed every year or some high number, which I found I didn't know there were 5 million birds flying around Maryland. So I mean, I don't know if.
No, I do remember that as well, Senator, but I would not want to give you bad information as far as giving you a specific number of the birds. But again, what I would share with you is that this bill does two things. It not only does that, it also is taking on a design element that actually saves money, which you talked about, by virtue of reducing the energy consumption as a part of this design element. Now, there is also the other element where it does provide protection to birds to reduce bird strikes. So it does two things, and it is a standard, as I mentioned before, that the designers of this state are in support of. And they have said that it is a good policy for us to have. And this is very narrow because this is only dealing with our state-owned buildings, as you mentioned, and it is going forward.
Thank you for that answer, those answers. So it's interesting, the title is now energy conserving standards. I know it used to be bird safe standards or something like that. So we've made energy conserving, and I'm all for that. Was the department resistant to trying to do these kind of energy saving standards before? Or because, I mean, it seems like if it saves energy and money, we ought to, I don't know that, why do we need to necessarily mandate it? Or was that discussed about why there hasn't been that progress on this in the past few years?
I do not have an answer for you on what has happened in the past. I do know that these types of standards and trying to meet or exceed LEED standards is what our departments have attempted to do. And this falls within that framework. And so I would suspect that you know, I can't speak to the past, but I can say that that's what this is going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your answers. Mr. President, just in speaking for a moment on or trying to address the favorable report, it's frustrating to have sat here for 90 days and we've really been having a frank discussion about the loss of life in this state to violent crime. We've had a discussion about other sort of major environmental catastrophes. And this bill coming out here, and I understand the committee it comes out of doesn't deal with those specific issues, but it's like bird safe bill coming out on the floor here when we still haven't dealt with the issue of repeat violent offenders. And it is troubling to me, the priorities that we see. I don't have an amendment at this time, so well, it's not on we're on the favorable report. I don't at this time have an amendment, but perhaps there may be some opportunity to discuss things as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's hear from Senator from District 6 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to make a statement on the bill.
Senator, may proceed.
I love birds. I'm a bird watcher. My wife knows every time I look outside, I'm checking out birds. So I love birds. And there's nothing wrong with checking out birds, different types of birds, hawks, so falcons, all kinds of birds. So I love birds. But one thing I don't understand, Mr. President, is how we're emphasizing on one bill. First of all, where we don't have numbers, we didn't study it, we didn't look into where we're not getting really facts. Just to debate right now, we really didn't have any numbers and we really didn't have any facts. So just knowing that, not studying this enough, we need more facts on this bill. And I don't think this bill is well prepared on the floor at the moment. But I can definitely say to continue on the conversation about something that we haven't talked about on the Senate floor or in legislation, about crime, about human life. Looking at our numbers here of homicides, of aggressive assaults, of auto thefts, of total crimes, they haven't gone down, they've gone up. They've gone up in Baltimore County, in Baltimore City, in major areas of Montgomery County, of Prince George's County. We see the numbers. I tell you, more than anything, auto theft has gone up unbelievably. But we're not talking about this. We're talking about birds. And I think if something should be emphasized on this floor, is something that needs to be talked about, and that's crime. The numbers speak for itself. And I'll go right back to what we don't have. We don't have numbers on what this bill is about birds flying into buildings, whether they're state buildings or not. And I think if we had a study on that maybe and had more numbers, we would have facts and we could move forward with this, Mr. President. So I believe this bill is not needed at the moment, but if they wanted to study on something like this, maybe we could find more numbers. So thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's hear from the Minority Leader on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just the floor leader could yield just another couple questions.
Senator may proceed.
It's hard to follow my colleague there. I think he brought up some very good analogies to what else is going on here in the Senate, you know, as far as what seems to be important to individuals here. But I do want to just follow up quickly on a couple of things that were brought up. You said this refers to state buildings only, correct?
Yes, sir.
And are state buildings already, they're not already using energy efficiency and design standards in their new construction?
They are using certain design, obviously features, but not this specific one. This is there's a very specific design element that's associated with this piece of legislation that takes into consideration these two elements.
So
It's different.
Notwithstanding the bird issue, I'm talking about the energy conservation standards. I mean, private sector has been able to figure this out already. You know, they're building new buildings all the time. They're seeking LEED status. Why is legislation necessary to tell the state government, for us to tell the state government to do the same thing that private sector is already doing?
Because the private sector actually doesn't always do that. So there are certain parts of the private sector who do decide that they want to be LEED certified in their construction, but that's just their choice. I mean, they don't have to, and a number of them do not do that. So what we're trying to say here is that we as a state do want to lead by example and have some of the higher standards that we are working towards.
Do you know, is there a queue for new state building construction that's awaiting that these design standards would apply to? I mean, what new buildings is the state building now?
Right now, the state, it is believed that the state will design or have specificity for between 3 and 4 buildings per year. That's what DGS has told us, and that's about what it's going to be. So those are the number of buildings that they have said would be coming online.
That's surprising. I wouldn't have thought the state is building that many new buildings per year. I mean, when we talk about state buildings,
it constructs, substantially alters, or acquires between 1 and 3 buildings each year.
Right,
That's what the state does.
Right, but this doesn't apply to buildings that are acquired.
It depends on the percentage. It depends on the amount of renovation and the work that they're doing with it, whether or not it could apply. If you're buying something but you're really making substantial change, in essence, you really are building a new building.
Right. Would this apply to, for instance, we've talked a lot about trying to lower the FBI headquarters here. Would this apply to Maryland setting a design standard that we would seek
that would not be a state-owned building, so no.
Right, but we wouldn't try to in that process tell the designers of that building that General Assembly thinks that this is very important and to try to do something? Do we know?
I cannot speak to the design elements of the General Services Administration, although I will say they are leaders in the space of design, generally speaking, across the country. They always are. But that would be a General Services Administration, which is a federal government building. We're here talking specifically about state-owned buildings.
Okay. Again, I'm just going to reiterate, I'm surprised that the state is building up to 3 buildings a year, unless that maybe counts schools?
No, it does not include schools, and I will be coming with an amendment to ensure that we are not including schools, just to make very clear that this does not apply to the schools.
Well, I guess we'll talk about that, but so we're saying this applies to state buildings that we are constructing, which you're being told is 2 to 3 a year.
That's correct.
Do these buildings have to have a specific height requirement in order for them to have
the standard would apply to the building, and the elements apply to the lower portions of the building. Right. And so that's where it would apply, just as there are different standards that apply at different places when you're doing construction projects.
Right. Okay. Mr. Floor Leader, there's been a lot of talk about wind turbines as well over the last number of years, and there's been concerns from many activist groups about the number of birds that are dying as a result of windmills. Mm-hmm. And you have done a lot of the energy policy with respect to windmills. Do you know, have we done anything in respect to evaluating deaths of birds from wind turbines?
No, I do not, and nor is that the subject of this bill.
No, I mean, again, we're talking about birds, so that is a subject, but, you know, different types of construction just led me to ask that question. We've also talked about, recently we've seen a number of whales that have beached themselves mm-hmm. on the beaches, and many have say that's a result of wind turbines as well. Mm-hmm. I know in the offshore wind legislation there was concerns from the National Aquarium. Do you recall if we addressed any type of migratory species, whether it's birds or whales, in the offshore wind bill?
Well, we're not talking about that bill right now, Senator. We're talking right now about House Bill 6, which deals with building standards for buildings, for state buildings.
I'm just trying to gauge the importance of birds around in the General Assembly, and it seems that we believe that the saving of bird lives is important in state buildings, but yet we're not saying that it has to be done in the private sector, and at the same time we're promoting policies that are also constructing wind turbines that we know have detrimental effects to birds as well too. So I'm just trying to gauge how important birds really are in this General Assembly, and why we're seeking to come back again. As you mentioned, it has been passed before and it hasn't reached the governor's desk, but you know why this is so important that we feel the need to bring this back again. Understand energy standards. I just don't understand necessarily the need for the added expenses to try to save a certain amount of bird lives that we really can't quantify.
Okay, as I mentioned, and I would suggest to the body that I actually have responded to the cost issue, because the cost issue is that it is negligible. I can't report that which is not there. If it is designed in a way, using the standard, the folks who do the designing, the American Institute of Architects, have said that it can be done with minimal to no additional cost. That's the reason we're doing this, while saving us money at the same time on energy by making it a more energy efficient building, and being able to save birds from these bird strikes. It's doing all of those things, hence the title.
Are pigeons considered birds?
Of course.
Not a big fan of having to save too many pigeons, I'll be honest. But all right, Mr. Floor Leader, I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
All right, question is on the favorable committee report. Lots of bills behind. Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill, there's been some good debate here and a lot of talk about the causes of bird deaths, and there's some uncertainty about the number. So, and we mentioned wind turbines. So, I looked up from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, American Bird Conservancy, Cornell Lab, 1.17 million birds in the United States killed a year by wind turbines. They expect that number to about double in the next 25 years or so. Communication towers, 5 million birds a year. Automobiles, 60 million birds a year. Now, the study does not differentiate in the automobiles, whether they're gas or electric or buses or just small cars. Also buildings, so buildings which we're discussing today, just the state buildings, but overall buildings are 100 million bird deaths across the country a year, and the top killer of birds by a wide margin, more than all the other things combined, 365 million birds a year are killed by cats. So those are the actual numbers U.S.-wide on bird deaths, since there were some questions about that.
All right, on the report, any further discussion? Chair recognizes senator from District 4 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could the floor leader yield for a question, please?
Floor to yield. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Senator. I heard you mention earlier, I think it was did you say it was the engineers who support this?
American Institute of Architects, those who design buildings.
So what you're saying is that they don't have a vested interest in supporting this by designing buildings that would have to have this new glass?
No, they do not.
Okay.
They're the designers. They design the buildings. That's their job. I mean, it doesn't benefit them to.
And so this glass got like a sheen or a no sheen on the outside of it to where the birds can't see themselves? Such
that the birds, there's two parts to it. One is to make sure that it is glass and it is designed so that that birds don't fly through, right? And so that they think like they're still flying into something, that they'll hit it, but also designed to make sure that it maximizes energy efficiency, which is a significant part of the bill.
So we're doing this just on newly constructed state buildings?
That is correct, or substantially which would be considered new construction because it's been substantially, updated and renovated beyond a certain amount.
So would it apply to the new DGS building?
That building is already along. Obviously, the design has already occurred. That ship has sailed.
Okay, so no. I just wanted to be sure because I thought maybe that would be a great pilot program to do like a study on this, to have the windows put in that building and just see what the cost is associated with each window as opposed to what we currently have to pay for. I guess that's no.
I didn't hear a question. I'm sorry.
Oh. I said I thought that would be a good opportunity for us to actually study this by using that to see what the actual cost would be.
Okay, Senator, I already said that it's beyond design phase. It's in construction, so it would not apply. It's already done.
Okay. And then on page 3, line 25, it does talk about mental health. I'm curious what the cost associated with the mental health aspect of this is.
If you look at the fiscal note, you'll see.
On the fiscal note, I apologize.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is that what you're referring to? If you look at the fiscal note, you'll see that you can't reliably depend on what the actual costs were associated with it. But with regard to any specific element, I mean, I wouldn't separate those things out.
Okay, so I just want to be very clear on this. So it is your opinion that everything that's being done here, that there would be no additional costs in building new buildings with this new glass that has the anti-reflective elements to it so that these bird strikes don't happen. You're saying that glass would not cost any more to put those windows in a new build as opposed to a normal double pane or commercial grade window?
No, I did not say that. What I said was that the architects, the people who do the designing of the building, have said that they can make it such that it won't cost more in the way that they design it. Now, there are certain elements that any individual can choose to put into the building however they want to. Like that's the nature of doing that. But from a design standpoint, they can do it in a way that won't cost us more money as a state.
But the windows themselves cost us more.
If anyone chooses to buy more expensive windows, of course it's going to cost you more. But you have to make that decision to choose to buy more expensive windows or not.
I'm talking about state contracts, though, Senator. That would imply by that statement that we're agreeing to buy more expensive windows.
Actually, well, Senator, if you were to buy 2 of the etched windows versus 10 of the regular windows, you can make it cost less while still providing the types of light, the things that you want to do. So I just simply do not accept your underlying premise. There is an opportunity when you are doing a large procurement to make certain decisions around different elements that would allow you to either cost more or cost less. That's what this does. It establishes a standard such that you're able to do that.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Senator. Thank you. And I know we're talking about, I'll talk about on the amendment, but on the bill as amended, I should say, I guess, Mr. President. We're losing innocent lives. We're talking about innocent bird lives here. We're losing innocent lives every day on our streets across the state with illegal guns and gun violence. And we're dealing with mental health issues on humans, and we're not seeing the return on investment on these issues. We need to do a better job. We haven't passed any pro-crime legislation through this chamber protecting the innocent lives of people that are being victimized across our state. But we've done a lot to allow past history of criminal activity to be expunged and other elements to be more legalized to minimize criminal activity. I just question the wisdom in what this body's doing when we're looking at human lives are being lost in a time when we are hemorrhaging law enforcement officers across this state, and we're not putting our focus or our energies or our finances into protecting our citizens. This is something that obviously this glass is going to cost more. I understand the floor leader is saying that there's ways they feel that they can make it cost neutral. I don't hear it. I don't see the magic wand coming out. I think this is a great idea for a study. This is not ready to go forward, and this is going to cost Maryland taxpayers money and Maryland lives. Thank you.
All right, on the report, just let's, before we keep going, just to remember, every minute that goes is another bill that doesn't find its way. So Chair recognizes the Senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry for taking up time talking. I just have 3 brief points to make. Point number 1, I started working downtown Baltimore in 1975. That's 48 years ago. I've been working downtown ever since. So 48 years of working downtown, and I'm surrounded, where my office is surrounded by the tallest buildings in the state. In 48 years, I have not once seen a dead bird lying on the sidewalk below these buildings. And some of these buildings are very tall. The USF&G building is the tallest. It's surrounded by an esplanade, and I walk across the esplanade with some frequency. Never have I seen a dead bird lying on the esplanade. Our office used to be in the World Trade Center, which has its own esplanade. Again, I walked into that building every single day. Not once did I see a dead bird. So maybe there's a squadron of people who are running around downtown Baltimore picking up all these dead birds before I get there. But you would think in 48 years, I would have seen a dead bird because I'm walking beneath all the tallest buildings in the state. That's point number 1. Point number 2, I can recall when I first arrived here on this floor in 2019, the most vivid recollection I have in the first month that I was here was of the Senate President from the dais referring to, quote, that damned bird bill, close quotes. So this bill has been around for a long time and has been received negatively from various quarters. Finally, I want to ask the floor leader some questions, if I could. I'm looking at the bill itself, and it says, the department shall establish standards for state buildings to conserve energy and minimize adverse impacts on birds that are consistent with the U.S. Green Building Council's Innovation Credit. Could you describe for us what that Innovation Credit is all about?
Yes, Senator. That is what I was sharing with you, or rather I was sharing with the body earlier about the U.S. GBC Innovation Credit. What it does is, it is, like I was mentioning, one of those standards. It's a subsection of the LEED standard where you have these best in practice design elements for buildings, and it is one of the best practices that are a subsection of the larger LEED certification program.
Okay, but what best practices are we talking about? What
we're talking about best practices. Sure, we're talking about best practices for energy efficiency. That's what the LEED certification does. If you know that certain buildings, you design them to make sure that they are as energy efficient as possible.
I'm totally positive on that. I'm talking about the bird standards.
There is a certification process that is associated with that, and this standard is a subsection of that standard. It includes both elements for energy conservation and for bird strikes. So, Senator, it's supportive of both those things. It's supportive of both the energy side and also the bird strike side.
But how are the buildings going to be different? If we're going to design and build buildings to protect birds, what is going to be different about them?
They are different in their design. They're different in different ways. I mean, you can have a building that, again, as I mentioned before, if you think about it, the birds may fly north-south. So you design the building, and you're also going to consider where your sunlight, natural light is coming from, where you may determine that it makes much more sense to orient a certain percentage of your windows east-west, for example. These are design elements that go into the design of a building that also have an impact on the energy efficiency of a building. These are design elements that you can incorporate and are included as a part of this.
And then there's a second standard that we have to adhere to called the American Bird Conservancy Bird-Friendly Design Recommendations. Now, what are those?
That is, again, those are a subsection where folks who have studied bird strikes have come up with ways to mitigate that from happening. And that's a group that does that.
Well, now, my recollection from a couple of years ago was that the buildings in the future would have to be designed with shutters or awnings or other design features which would prevent the birds from hitting the building.
No, it is not so prescriptive as to say that is the case. I mean, it's a standard, and there are different methods within those standards to be able to accomplish the goals. It's not that prescriptive.
I specifically remember those standards being discussed a couple of years ago as how we would have to build our new buildings.
No, I recall folks saying those things in the debate, having perhaps nothing to do actually with what the actual standards were, but they were parts of the conversation. I do recall that as a part of the conversation, not specifically speaking to a particular standard.
Okay, thank you.
All right, on the favorable committee report, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments? Chair Senator has an amendment.
I do have an amendment.
Pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment.
Oh, no, you need that. Okay.
Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment clarifies that the bill applies only to state buildings as defined in the Act and not to public school construction projects, as I discussed earlier. Thank you. I move the amendment.
Senator moves the amendment. This is a committee amendment. Chair recognizes the minority leader on the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just a question for the floor leader on the amendment.
Will the floor leader yield?
Yes.
Senator may proceed.
Just seeing this right now, but what's the purpose of this? Why
the purpose of the amendment is to make it abundantly clear, although we don't believe that it is the case, but just to make it abundantly clear that this only applies to the state buildings as we discussed before, and that it does not apply to public school construction projects. Part of the reason for that is because, as you well know, a significant amount of the money that goes into many of our school construction projects are state funds. So we're just making sure that this really applies solely to the state-owned buildings exclusively.
But I thought we were hearing that the bill does not necessarily increase cost of construction.
I didn't say anything about increasing cost of construction. What I said was the percentage of the money that was spent on buildings. Our school construction, some of our schools are constructed with a significant amount of state money, right, is what I said. Nothing to do about with the actual cost of it. But this is just clarifying to make sure that it is very clear that we are not talking about public school construction projects in this legislation.
But my question is, why are we not doing this with public schools?
This is about state buildings that we control. As I'm sure you would prefer, we want to make sure that our local school systems have a significant amount of control with regard to their construction projects. This is about the state buildings where we are leading by example.
I'm hearing what you're saying, but we've just had a fairly long debate about how these design standards were not necessarily increased cost, because we did talk about construction costs, and we heard the importance of birds here in Maryland. So I just don't know, why is it necessary if the premise of the bill is state constructed buildings, and as you say, we are using state money for public schools. Why do we just not keep public schools included in the bill?
For the reasons that I said already, Senator, which of course is oftentimes we look to allow our local school systems to have a significant amount of control, and those things oftentimes I find that most of us are hopeful for that, I think, Senator, versus pulling this away where perhaps it would be a little more ambiguous. I think that the local school systems will be very grateful for the clarity that says that they are in control.
Thank you very much, Mr. Floor Leader. Mr. President, I'm just still fully understanding if this is such an important issue, and it's important enough for the 2 to 3 state buildings that we construct a year, which again, I still would like to hear from DGS about the 2 to 3 buildings a year that we're building. And if we pull out schools, essentially nobody other than these 2 to 3 buildings a year would be having to adhere to these standards. So I would think that we would want the schools to have to comply with this as well. If it's important to the General Assembly for our state buildings, it should be just as important for the schools as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? If not, any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 6 is ordered passed to third reading. Let's go to Special Order Calendar number 55. Clerk, read the bill.
Senate Bill 92, Senator Lamb, Department of General Services, Energy Conserving Standards, Maryland Sustainability Buildings Act of 2023. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 92 is a cross-file bill of House Bill 6, which we heard in great detail, so I will not repeat it. There is one committee amendment. The amendment clarifies that the bill requires do not apply to buildings leased by the state and makes a technical correction to the innovation credit terminology referenced in the bill. The amendment conforms the bill to House Bill 6. Move adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I special order this bill to the appropriate time tomorrow?
That would be out of order, but 11:59 would work.
Well, 11:59 it is.
11:59. All right. Any objections? Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Look, we've got a bunch. A lot of bills aren't going to make it today. It's going to be a long night. All right. Let's go to House Bill 282. Madam Clerk, will please read the bill and the first message.
Message to the Senate. House Bill 282, Delegate Queen, Financial Institutions, Morgan Loan Originators, Independent Contractors. By the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Said bills returned herewith by order. Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right. Message having been read is ordered journalized. Clerk, read the next message.
Message to the House of Delegates. By the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates. House Bill 282, Delegate Queen, Financial Institutions, Mortgage Loan Originators, Independent Contractors. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and respectfully request the House reconsider and concur. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Klossmeyer, Chair, Senator Bidel, Senator Mounts. Said bills returned herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. We've got another one. Let's go to Senate Bill 222. Oh, sorry, backwards. Clerk will read the bill and the first message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 222, Senator Augustine, Environment Reducing Packaging Materials Producer Responsibility. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Augustine, Chairman, Senator Hester, and Senator Simonaire. The House appoints Delegate Stein, Chair, Delegate Barvey, Delegate Crosby. Said bills returned herewith by order. Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized. We've got a couple of these. These are Senate bills setting up the conference committees. So let's go next to Senate Bill 333. 222, then 333. Clerk, read the message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 333, Senator Hayes, Economic Development Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone Program, alterations and financing by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Elfrith, Chairman, Senator Quarterman, Senator Zucker. The House appoints Delegate Polakovich Carr, Chair, Delegate Hartman, Delegate Vogel. Said bills returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. We've got the next bill, Senate Bill 537. Clerk will read the bill and the message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 537, Senator King, Gaming Video Lottery Operations License Renewal by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agree to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Gazzone, Chairman, Senator King, Senator Salling. The House appoints Delegate Atterbury, Chair, Delegate Hartman, Delegate Patterson. Said bills returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. We have one more. This is Senate Bill 781. Clerk will read the bill and the message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 781, Senator Hester, Offshore Wind Energy State Goals and Procurement, Promoting Offshore Wind Energy Resources Act by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Hester, Chairman, Senator Feldman, Senator Gallion. The House appoints Delegate Charkoudian, Chair, Delegate Crosby, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo. Said bills returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. All right, it looks like we have mostly everyone. Madam Secretary, could we ring the bells quickly and do a quorum call before third reading calendar?
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is still in session. We've got some Senate bills to send over. This is calendar number 6969. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 171, Senator Feldman, Private Passenger Motor Vehicle Liability Insurance, Enhanced Underinsured Motorist Coverage, Opt-out Option.
Senate Bill 171 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the Senator from Anne Arundel on the bill.
Mr. President, if the floor leader would yield just for, had a little chance to read this.
Senator may proceed.
So I understand those who currently have a policy, this does not apply to them. But someone who gets a new policy, they don't opt out, so they have this, and their renewal comes up. Can you explain the process at that point?
So, Senator, you said they do not opt out when they purchase the policy.
Correct.
Then it will continue to stay on the policy unless they make a change.
Okay. Will they be getting a form that they are notified that they can opt out at that renewal?
They only get the form at the time they purchase the policy. But, you know, each renewal, you have your coverages spelled out. So it would be on your coverage list and say that it's, you know, enhanced uninsured motorist.
Okay. So if you miss it the first time and you stay on that policy for 20 years, you'll never get that form again.
No, but you shouldn't miss it the first time because it's part of the documents that you're signing to purchase a new policy.
Yeah, should and do are two different things. Okay, and then the other thing, you know, the committee has made a case that this is really needed, that it helps people, they're just missing the notification and so forth, so they really should get it, so let's have them do an opt-out. And I looked at the amendments, and I see that the committee carved out a huge group of people, basically those who already have a policy.
Right.
And if this is such a great policy that we want to inform people to get it, why are we carving such a large group out?
The committee felt like people needed a notification so that if you already have a policy and this was just added on your renewal, you might not notice that because, you know, your renewal comes in the mail and a lot of people just pay the bill, or sometimes it's just automatically deduct it month after month. So you wouldn't really have the notification that you've received this new coverage.
And that's interesting based on the response about the other question was you should read this and that it's their responsibility. But in this case, okay, thank you. So, Mr. President, I just have a really hard time with this bill. It's supposed to be this great policy that we must give people, and then the Senate comes over and says it's such a great policy, but we don't want to give it to a large swath of people for some unknown reason. And just to refresh the body, current policy is that the policyholder has to get written notice today. It's not an option. 98% of the people who get that notice say they don't want it. So the solution is, let's make it an opt-out, and we're going to make sure they really see the notice by creating the font to 14, because we know that creating the font to 14 is going to get people to look at it much more. But I think what's going to happen is a lot more people are going to sign up for something they don't realize they're getting, and it's going to cost them hundreds of more dollars. And then once they've done it, we're not even going to tell them about it for the next 20 years in their renewal policy. And it's their responsibility to realize that they're getting something that they didn't want. It kind of reminds me of one of my pet peeves when I travel. I'll go to a rental car at an airport, and they'll say, it's all in the wording. You know, do you want this extra insurance? But what they say is, do you want the enhanced insurance or just the standard? And most people I see in line go, oh no, I just want the standard. Well, they don't realize they don't even need the insurance many times because your credit card already picks it up or your insurance picks it up. But the way they word it, do you want the enhanced or just the standard? And they're being, in my mind, somewhat manipulated into getting something they don't want. And I was like, what is bothering me so much about this bill? And this is what it reminds me of, because I've heard it's a fee, and it's not a fee because it's not by its definition. And I've heard it's a tax, but what it is, it's giving people something they don't want in sort of a sneaky way at the expense of unsuspecting policyholders. Most people are lucky to get the bill paid on time, much less read the 20 pages that come in. And I know with my insurance company, I constantly get updates because I have 7 kids. And I don't sit through and read through those 20 pages. Now, maybe you are much more diligent, but the ones this is going to impact are our younger drivers who are getting new policies, and they're not, I guarantee it, the majority of them are not going to sit down and read 20 pages of really exciting insurance policy. So I think this is a bad bill. I think if we wanted to keep it opt-in, that's fine. 2% of the population said they liked it, they could get it. But this is more government saying, we know what's best for you. We should leave the decision with the policy owners and not government mandates like this.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 171 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 237, Senator Klossmeyer, Public Health Dental Services Access.
Senate Bill 237 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 237 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 367, Senator Lamb, Public Employee Relations Act.
Senate Bill 367 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 367 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 489, Senator Brooks, Public Service Commission, Certificates of Public Convenience and Necessity, Local Permits.
Senate Bill 489 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 489, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 800, Senator Hester, Public Service Commission, Cybersecurity Staffing and Assessments, Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Act of 2023.
Senate Bill 800 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 40 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 800, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 923, Senator Rosapap, Natural Resources Green Space Equity Program Establishment.
Senate Bill 923 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 40 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 923, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 925, Senator A. Washington, Elections, Election Judges Minimum Compensation.
Senate Bill 925 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the minority whip on the bill.
Mr. President, I wonder if I could ask the floor leader one question on this bill.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Of course.
I really appreciate the work the committee did to try to balance the cost of this. We do want to get good people working for our elections, but we didn't want to throw it all on the counties. So that was great. I appreciate the committee working on that issue. I say that because I know we're up here questioning all the time, but I do. I mean, you guys I really appreciate the cooperation there. Was really curious about with this bill, do these folks, now that we're going to start counting ballots 8 days before early voting starts, does that mean that we're going to need, by we, I mean the counties, county board of elections, boards of election, will they need to employ people for longer, or is that a county staff issue?
Good question, Senator. This bill is about election judges, not canvassers, not poll workers, not volunteer campaign workers, not security guards. It's just for the election judges. There's a chief judge, there's a canvassing judge, there's a voter registration judge. There are different things, and we want to make sure that folks are getting paid enough that there's incentive for a 15, 16-hour day.
Right, and so because so the 15, 16-hour day you're talking about is obviously when we're running the early voting and the day of election day sites.
Correct.
These people we just referenced, though, that are a part of the process starting 8 days before early voting now, so are they already current staff, or would there be people that would also have to be hired in?
So I believe that different counties do this differently, but as you know, there are bipartisan teams. We don't want 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans, so they must be either a DNR, or if that's hard, then get a decline, someone who is unaffiliated, but make sure that there is accountability. And they're the folks who will open and help process, who will look and see whether there's a ballot that has questionable markings and needs to be reviewed by the local boards of elections and all that.
So
not be covered by this bill.
This bill doesn't cover them, but those canvassers, they also have to come in, though. They're temporary employees generally.
Correct.
Or not employees, I guess.
Contractors.
Yeah. Is that how election judges are defined, as contractors?
I actually have never thought about their tax status.
No, that's fine. That isn't germane to the bill. Because I can tell you, when I went at this last election, we had a very close local race in our county. I went and watched the canvassing. I do think we need to address the issue of you print out something from your email and mail it in, and it has to be recreated. I think that's a huge problem, because even 2 people, and I observed it was a great process, very open and transparent, but there's no way somebody didn't make a mistake, probably at some point. And thankfully the race didn't come down to 1 vote, but I am a little concerned about the security of that, but that's not this bill, so correct?
It is not this bill, but it was addressed in Senate Bill 379 in that canvassing bill, and there is bipartisan agreement that those internet-delivered ballots are a challenge. I do want to defend the workers, though, on their accuracy, and again, not this bill, but in the county executive race in Montgomery County, I watched for endless hours, and I really commend you for going in Carroll County. I encourage all my colleagues to watch the experience perhaps next year, because it really is fascinating and very well managed in every county, but we do need to make sure that voters understand the burden for them and for the boards of elections about these internet-delivered ballots.
Thank you. And Mr. President, thank you very much. And Mr. President, I am going to be voting for this bill. And again, I appreciate the cooperation of figuring out some funding help so that it doesn't all fall on, especially the smaller county Board of Elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 925, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 950, Senator Quarterman, Maryland Zero Emission Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council membership.
Senate Bill 950 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. Senator's chair, in explaining his vote, noticed that this particular bill is not necessarily related to creating peace in our communities, but would note that it's very important for an individual member's district. And so on Sine Die, we're going to deal with a lot of issues that may not be prioritized as to one or other's top issue that they came into session about, but each bill does have some particular importance for that individual member. And so I'm very proudly voting for this bill. With that, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 950, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to calendar number 44. 44. Clerk will read the bill.
House Joint Resolution Number 4, the Speaker, locating the new Federal Bureau of Investigation's headquarters in Maryland.
House Joint Resolution number 4 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Joint Resolution 4, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to these concurrences. We got a bunch of Senate bills here. This is number 19. Number 19. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 452, Senator Griffith, Film Production Activity Income Tax Credit Alterations in Maryland Entertainment Council.
Recognizing the chair of the Committee on the House Amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 452 alters the film production activity tax credit by increasing the annual amount of credits the Department of Commerce may award. The House amendment reduces the annual amount to $15 million in 24, $17.5 in 25, $20 million in 26. The amendments also add to the membership of the council and adds components to the study. The committee concurs.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the House amendments? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 452 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 452, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 660, the President, Office of the Comptroller, Taxpayer Advocate Division.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill establishes the Taxpayer Advocate Division in the Comptroller's Office. The House amendments conforms the Senate and House bills. The amendment adds language to clarify that technical staff under the bill would serve as webmaster and requires the Department of Budget and Management in coordination with the Comptroller's Office to allocate and reclassify positions for the division. We concur.
Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Question now, Senate Bill 660 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 660, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 691, Senator King, Home Amenities Rental Sales and Use Tax Imposed and Local Tax Authorized.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 691 imposes the sales and use tax on specified home amenity rentals and authorizes counties and municipalities to impose a home amenity rental tax. The House amendments change the effective date to June 2024. We concur.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? If not, any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill, almost, not quite.
Wrong, but
Senate Bill 691 is again before the Senate on
hang on. There we go.
third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 691 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. We'll go to EEE, Education, Energy, and the Environment concurrences. This is calendar number 11. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 382, Senator M. Washington, Accessory Dwelling Unit Policy Task Force.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes the Accessory Dwelling Unit Policy Task Force. The House amendments add a representative from the Maryland Municipal League and from the Maryland Association of Counties and adds survey and permit-related responsibilities to the task force. The committee moves to concur with those House amendments.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Question now is on the Senate Bill 382, which is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 382, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Mr. President?
Chair recognizes the senator from District 6.
Could I go from a yay to a nay for the concurrence for Senate Bill 691, please? Thank you.
691. Was that our last calendar? Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's take up the next bill.
Senate Bill 471, Senator Elfreth, Sediment Control Plans, Discharge Permits for Stormwater Associated with Construction Activity, and Notice and Comment Requirements.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Maryland Department of the Environment to review and update the specifications for sediment control plans as specified. The bill also establishes enhanced public comment requirements for construction activities located in certain sensitive areas, such as the critical area buffer and floodplains identified by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The House amendments delay the requirement of the department review and update sediment control plan specifications by 1 year to December 1st, 2025, and adds language ensuring that any updates are not applied retroactively. The amendments also make minor changes to definitions and reporting requirements. Mr. President, the committee moves to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the committee moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 471 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 471, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 611, Senator Bailey, Office of the Attorney General, Environmental and Natural Resources Crimes Unit Establishment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill establishes an Environmental and Natural Resources Crimes Unit of the Office of the Attorney General to investigate and prosecute violations of state, criminal, environmental, and natural resources laws. The House amendments make minor changes to the bill's terminology and alters a reporting requirement. These changes conform the bill to House Bill 874 as already passed by the Senate. We move to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion on the amendments? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 611 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 611, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 649, Senator Elfreth, State Government Regulation Procedures and the Maryland Register.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes various changes to the processes and procedures for units of state government to submit regulations to the administrator of the Division of State Documents, the Joint Committee on Administrative, Executive, and Legislative Review, and the Department of Legislative Services. The House amendments specify procedures for modifying a regulation before and after it has been published and requires the administrator of the Division of State Documents to consult with DLS in maintaining a filing system. Mr. President, the committee moves to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection with the House amendments? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 649 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 649 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 823, Senator Carrozza, Natural Resources Annual State Park Pass Discounts for Law Enforcement Officers and First Responders.
All right, recognizing the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Department of Natural Resources to provide a discount of at least $40 on annual state park passes for all first responders and law enforcement officers who are Maryland residents. The House amendment alters the bill's effective date to be June 1, 2023. The committee moves to concur with that amendment, that one House amendment.
Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the House amendments? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Question now, Senate Bill 823 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 823 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 831, Senator Hershey, Libraries, Regional Resources Centers, Governance Requirements.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 831 alters the requirements for governance of libraries designated as regional resource centers and establishes a governing board for each regional resource center. The House amendment reduces the number of members of the public on a regional resource center governing board from 2 to 1. Mr. President, the committee concurs with that House amendment.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 831 is again before us for third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 831 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 836, Senator Brooks, Maryland Native Plats Program.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes the Maryland Native Plants Program administered by the Maryland Department of Agriculture and the University of Maryland Extension. The House amendments make technical changes and delays the bill's effective date to July 1, 2024. These changes conform the bill to House Bill 950 as already passed by the Senate. The committee moves to concur with the House amendments.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 836 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 836 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. All right, Senators, we have to do a quick, we're going to pause on third readers because we have to do a quick Rules Committee. Let's recognize the chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was distracted by these people right in here.
That's very true. Fair.
Yes. Could I ask that the Rules Committee please meet briefly across the hall, just for about 5 minutes, please, across the hall in the red room.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair of Rules. We're going to do some of the second readers that are Education, Energy, and the Environment, so reports 60.
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes the minority.
I have to walk out. I was wondering if I could do a vote change.
proceed.
Green to red on Senate Bill 452.
452, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded the same. I want to go from green to red on Senate Bill 452.
452, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, do we have other Rules Committee members? Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from the 35th.
Could I also go to red on SB 452?
452 to read. All right, 452. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's see if we have, just want to make sure we got everybody. All right. Let's go to second reading calendar number 60 out of Education, Energy, and the Environment. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 320, Delegate Guyton, Maryland Longitudinal Data Systems, definition of student data alterations, favorable.
Yeah, Chair recognizes Senator from Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill adds student disability data by specific categories to the data that's collected, analyzed, and reported on the Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center. That has been in existence since 2010, and this bill simply adds another category. This bill was approved unanimously in committee. There was no opposition, and in fact, 6 disability advocacy organizations supported this bill. Therefore, I move adoption of the favorable committee amendment as well as the bill.
All right, the floor leader moves that we adopt the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 320 is hereby ordered to pass for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 323, Delegate Shakutian, Social Services Programs, Eligibility and Enrollment, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senate President Pro Tem as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Office of Home Energy Programs to enroll in any fuel and utility assistance program any household with an individual who meets the financial eligibility requirements established by the Department of Human Services for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, temporary assistance for needy families, supplemental security income, or means-tested Veterans Affairs benefits. The bill also increases the annual income eligibility level for the Electric Universal Service Program to 200% of federal poverty guidelines. The bill takes effect January 1st, 2024. There are no committee amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 323 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 934, Delegate Hutchinson, Natural Resources Antlerless Deer Hunting Programs Authorization, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 934 establishes an exemption to the existing prohibition against selling, offering for sale, bartering, or exchanging any game bird or mammal taken from the wild for antlerless deer hunted during a certain raffle program. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one is technical. The second amendment clarifies that the intent of the bill is to allow a person to receive a raffle ticket for each antlerless deer hunted by the person during a raffle program that was previously held at least once in the time period from January 1st, 2019 through January 30th, 2023. I'd like to move for adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 934 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 967, Delegate Bandari, General Provisions Commemorative Days, Dash-On Day, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Baltimore City and County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 967 creates the commemorative day, Dash-On Day, on October 5th to celebrate the Indianapolis Festival of Harvest, Justice, and Family. This bill, there are over 20,000 Nepalese Americans living in America, with nearly 10,000 in the Baltimore area. Dash-On is one of the largest holiday festivals in the Hindu faith, and it lasts for 15 days. This bill would join other commemorative days that we have: Tuskegee Airmen Commemorative Day, Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day, Crime Victim and Advocate Commemorative Day, Maryland Centenarians Day, Fire Rescue and Emergency Services Workers Day, German American Heritage Day, and Poetry Day. There are no committee amendments. I ask for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 967 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1047, Delegate Ebersol, Juvenile Services Education Program, Transfer of Locally Employed Educational Professions. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill requires a locally employed educational professional who transfers from a position in a local public school system or a county public library system to the Juvenile Service Education Program to 1, be given credit as a state employee for the individual's years of service for purpose of establishing the individual's leave accrual rate, and 2, keep their leave balance earned at their previous position, including those that exceed a certain amount subject to certain requirements. The bill applies retroactively and must be applied to and interpreted to affect any transfers by locally employed educational professionals or after July 1st, 2022. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 clarifies specified defined terms, expands provisions to include certificated and uncertificated professionals, strikes provisions requiring professionals to be placed in a position that meets specified conditions upon transfer to the JSEP, requires the individual to be given credit as a state employee for years of service in their previous position for the purpose of establishing the individual's leave accrual rate, and requires specified professionals who transfer directly to JSEP from certain employers within a specified period of time to receive certain accumulated leave in a specified amount. I move adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1047 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's take that consent, even though we have a few people out. It's second reading, so we'll be fine. This is consent calendar number 61. Clerk will read the calendar.
Education, Energy, and the Environment Report number 61, consent calendar number 16.
All right, Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Yes, Mr. President. These bills basically represent House bills that are identical to Senate bills that have already passed unanimously out of the body. And so that's it.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report on the bills for consent calendar number 16. Any discussion? Senators, please take a look. Are there any bills that senators wish to separate out and consider separately? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee reports for bills on consent calendar number 16 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to judicial proceedings, calendar number 44. These are Senate bills. Calendar number 44. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 208, Senator Bailey, Criminal Law, Indecent Exposure Within the Sight of a Minor, favorable with 2 amendments.
Senate Bill 208.
Thank you, Mr. President. It looks like we might not have the floor leader on the floor. Can we special order this entire calendar until after the following calendar?
All right.
Let's withdraw that motion, please, Mr. President.
All right. Recognizing the chair of the committee. This is the Senate bill. We also have the House bills, but figure we'll take the Senate ones up first. Hold it. All right. All right, Chair recognizes the senator from District 4 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 208, indecent exposure within the presence of a minor. As amended, this bill codifies the prohibition on committing the common law crime of indecent exposure. A violator is guilty of a misdemeanor and subject to the existing statutory penalty of imprisonment for up to 3 years and/or a fine up to $1,000. The bill also establishes a new offense by prohibiting a person from committing indecent exposure with prurient intent when the person knows or reasonably should know that a minor is present and the minor is at least 2 years old and more than 4 years younger than the perpetrator. This offense is a misdemeanor and is punishable by imprisonment for up to 5 years and/or a fine of up to $10,000. There are 2 committee amendments, Mr. President. The first one is technical. The second one alters the prohibition to prohibit indecent exposure in the presence of a minor as specified. And with that, I would move the amended committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 208 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 226, Senator Saling, Criminal Law Child Pornography Accessing with Intent to View, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 226 prohibits a person from accessing and viewing child pornography. There are 2 essentially technical amendments. I move for the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 226 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's do the House bill version quickly of those. This is report number 43. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 212, Delegate Crosby, Criminal Law and Decent Exposure within the Sight of a Minor, favorable 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 212 is the mirror bill of Senate Bill 208. And with that, I would unanimously pass favorable out of committee and move the adoption of the 2 amendments in the favorable committee report that was identical to SB 208.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments. Favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 212 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1175, Delegate Valentine, Criminal Procedure Hunting Offenses Expungement, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 1 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1175 expands the eligibility of expungement of a police record, court record, or other record maintained by the state or a political subdivision of the state. There are no committee amendments. It did pass the committee 11-0. Therefore, I recommend a favorable report of House Bill 1175.
All right. Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1175 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's get some of these conference committee reports read to start them. This is number 322. This is a Senate bill, so clerk will read the bill and the first message, or the message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 322, Senator Bidle, Alcoholic Beverages Class 4 Limited Winery License Food Service. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not receive in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Bidle, Chairman, Senator Hayes, Senator Moutz. The House appoints Delegate Valderrama, Chair, Delegate Chi, Delegate Weigel. Said bills return herewith by order Sylvia Secret, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. We've got another one. This is 448, Senate Bill 448. Clerk will read the bill and the message.
Message to the Senate. Senate Bill 448, Senator Guile, Alcoholic Beverages Manufacturer's License and Offside Permits. By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Guile, Chairman, Senator Klossmeyer, Senator Moutz. The House appoints Delegate Valderrama, Chair, Delegate Harrison, Delegate Shi. Said bills return herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. Madam Secretary, could we ring the bell? I want to get through some of these concurrences. Let's do a quorum call before we do third reading.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We're going to take up concurrences out of finance. This is report number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill number 2, Senator Hester, Department of Human Services, Electronic Benefits Transfer Cards, Theft of Benefits, Prevent Electronic Benefits Theft Act of 2022. This is an emergency bill.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 2, the emergency bill, requires the Department of Human Services to develop a process to reimburse a beneficiary for any amount of benefit lost due to the fraudulent use of their electronic benefits transfer card. The House amendments are clarifying, strike the use of general funds under certain circumstances, and strike a mandated appropriation for the fund. We move to concur.
All right. Chair urges that we move to concur on the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 2 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 2, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 19, Senator Carter, Equity and Transportation Sector Guidelines and Analysis.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the Maryland Department of Transportation to conduct a transit equity analysis and perform a cost-benefit analysis. It also requires that they perform these analyses before announcing any reduction in or cancellation of a capital expansion project. The bill also expands existing transportation plan reports and committees to include transportation equity issues. The House amendments make a correction to the definition in the bill, include additional element for analysis and under one of the studies, and it also changes the effective date of the bill. We move to concur.
Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 19 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 19 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 145, Senator West, State Board of Social Work Examiners, Conditional and Temporary Licenses to Practice Social Work. This is an emergency bill.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 145, as amended by the Senate, would have established a conditional and temporary social work license. The House amendments strike the temporary license and make the effective day of the bill October 1, 2023. Also strike the sunset provision. We move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 145 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 145, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 228, Senator Bidle, Department of Aging, Long-Term Care and Dementia Care Navigation Programs.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 228 requires each area on aging to establish a long-term care and dementia care navigator program. The House amendment further specifies that the use of funds by the AAA agency and also specifies that the program target chronic disease. We move to concur with the House.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 228 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 228, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 232, Senator Bidle, Health Occupations Licensed Athletic Trainers Dry Needling.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill authorizes a licensed athletic trainer to perform dry needling, and the House amendments make a technical correction to the definition of dry needling, aligning the cross-filed bills. Therefore, we move to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 232 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 232, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 331, Senator Hayes, Baltimore City West North Avenue Development Authority Membership and Procurement. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 331 alters the membership of the West North Avenue Development Authority and generally exempts the authority from state procurement. The House amendments add 2 members to the membership of the authority to be appointed by the chair, alters from October 1 to December 15, 2023, the date that they must submit their comprehensive report, and specifies that the procurement exemption in the bill terminates September 30, 2026. We move to concur with the House amendments.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 331 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 331, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 431, Washington County Senators Alcoholic Beverages Class 9 Limited Distillery License, Self-Distribution.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill authorizes a holder of a Class 9 limited distillery license to acquire a Class 8 liquor wholesaler license similar to the Class 1 distiller license holders. The House amendments make further clarifying changes to the law so that we can implement the change properly. We move to concur with the House amendments.
All right, chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 431 is again on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 431, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 550, the President, Financial Regulation, Maryland Community Investment Venture Fund Establishment Access to Banking Act.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 550 establishes incentives to expand access to capital for businesses and individuals located in low to moderate income communities. The House amendments make technical and clarifying changes to the bill, expressly stating that the fund is an instrumentality of the state and requiring the Commissioner of Financial Regulation to establish a governance structure for the fund. We move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 550 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote, or change their vote? So the clerk will take the call. Trying to avoid it later. All right, with 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 550, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 560, Senator Gazzone, Animal Testing and Research, Human Relevant Research Funding, and Animal Testing and Research Contributions.
Senate Bill 560. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires that research facilities that report the use of animals on a specified form for medical and product research to contribute a specified amount depending on the number of animals used to the Human Relevant Research Fund. The House amendment is corrective. Move to concur.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 560 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 39 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 560 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 644, Senator McCray, Maternal Mortality Review Program, Local Teams Access to Information and Records.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 664 requires that a local maternity mortality review team, on request of the team's chair and as necessary to carry out the local team's purpose, be provided with access to information and records, including information on prenatal care maintained by a health care provider regarding a woman whose death is being reviewed by the local team. The House amendments clarify the language, move the provision to a different part of the code, and specify that the information be provided promptly without undue delay. We move to concur.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 644 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 644 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 648, Senator Rosapep, Electronic Health Networks and Electronic Medical Records in Nursing Homes, Release of Records.
Senate Bill 648 is on third reading for final passage. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not. No, that was not accurate. It is a concurrence. Sorry, I was trying to...
Yes, we move to concur.
Well,
I know.
Can
we move that one to the
why don't we
end of the
special order it until the
yeah.
end of the calendar? We'll see what we can find. Yeah. All right, clerk, no objections. Without objection, we'll special order to the end of the calendar. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 732, Chair, Finance Committee, Department of Disabilities, State Coordinator for Autism Strategy, and Maryland Commission on Disabilities, alterations.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 732 transfers the State Coordinator for Autism Strategy from the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives to the Department of Disabilities and specifies that the department must provide staff for the advisory stakeholder group on autism-related needs. The bill expands the membership of the Maryland Commission on Disabilities to include an individual with traumatic brain injury. The House amendments require, as of the bill's effective date, that the governor transfer 2 positions and the associated general funds for the State Coordinator for Autism Strategy from the Executive Department to the Department of Disabilities. The amendment also advances the bill's effective date from October 1 to July 1 of 2023. We move to concur.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 732 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 732 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 805, Senator Ellis, Maryland Medical Assistance Program and Health Insurance Required Coverage for Biomarker Testing.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 805 requires health insurance carriers and Medicaid to provide coverage for biomarker testing for the purpose of diagnosis, treatment, appropriate management, or ongoing monitoring of a disease or condition that is supported by medical and scientific evidence. The House amendment simply makes a technical correction. We move to concur.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 805 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 805 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 827, Senator Hayes, State Commission of Real Estate Appraisers, Appraisal Management Companies, and Home Inspectors, sunset extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 827 extends the termination date for the State Commission of Real Estate Appraisers, Appraisal Management Companies, and Home Inspectors within the Maryland Department of Labor by 3 years to July 1, 2026, and requires an independent evaluation conducted by the Commission. The House amendment alters the process for conducting the independent evaluation. We move to concur with the House.
Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 827 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 827 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 828, Senator Hayes, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program Modifications.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill modifies last year's enacted Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program by altering a key administrative deadline, technical definitions, and components of the program's administration. The House amendments correct a reference in the codes. We move to concur.
Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the amendments? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 828 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 828 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 871, Senator M. Washington, Social Worker Sunset Extension Notification of Complete Application and Work Group on Social Worker Examination Requirements for Licensure. This is an emergency bill.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes a work group to identify alternatives to specified social work examinations and requirements, and develops recommendations for an assessment method for independent practice. The House amendments make the bill an emergency measure, change the requirement for notice for the completion of an application from 10 days to 15 business days, alter the membership of a work group, authorize the work group to establish subgroups or contract with a work entity with expertise in analyzing assessment bias, and require the work group to determine by December 1, 2023 whether the state should continue to use the examinations developed by the Association of Social Work Boards, or whether the state should issue temporary licenses for applicants who complete all of the requirements except for the examination. It also requires a preliminary report by September 1, 2023, and a final report by December 1, 2024. We move to concur with the House amendments.
Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion of the House amendments? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 871 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Chair recognizes the bill sponsor. Has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to give a special thanks and appreciation for the hard work that the Finance Committee did on this issue of temporary licensure and responding, I believe, boldly to the findings of the report that there were bias. And so I look forward to us continuing that work. But I thought the rest of the body should know that a great deal of work went into this, and that we will come out with a very, very good product in the coming sessions. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 871, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got another concurrence calendar. This is number 15 out of B&T. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 826, Senator Hayes, Homeowners Property Tax Credit Qualified Homeowner Application and Certification Requirements.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill creates a simplified application process to receive the homeowner's property tax credit for homeowners who only have income from Social Security, a pension, or an annuity. House amendment adds information that homeowners must certify in order to use a simplified application. Budget and Tax concurs.
The chair urges that we concur in the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 826 is again on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 826, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got another one out of Budget and Tax. This is concurrence calendar number 2020. Clerk will read the bill. Perfect.
Senate Bill 426, Senator King, University System of Maryland Board of Regents Quasi-Endowment Funds.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill authorizes the Board of Regents to do a one-time transfer to a quasi-endowment, the investment proceeds of which would be used for need-based financial aid. The House amendment is technical to ensure that the financial aid would be for every USM institution. We concur.
All right. Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 426 is again on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 426, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got a Senate Bill Conference Committee. This is Senate Bill 333. Conference Committee report. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 333, Senator Hayes, Economic Development, Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone Program, Alterations and Financing.
Recognizing the chair of the Conference Committee, Senator from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. President. We came to a compromise with the House where allowing 3 RISE zones in all jurisdictions with the exception of Baltimore City, recognizing just how many institutions of higher education they have and the potential for greater economic development therein. So I move adoption of the Conference Committee report.
All right. The floor leader moves for the Conference Committee chair moves that we adopt the Conference Committee report. Any discussion of the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee report is adopted. Senate Bill 333 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 333, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's take up, we have House Bill 770. Has a Conference Committee report?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Just one moment. Clerk, read the bill.
House Bill 770, Delegate Atterbury, Blueprint for Maryland's Future Publicly Funded Pre-Kindergarten Maryland Consortium on Coordinated Community Supports and Career Ladder Alterations.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Conference Committee, Senator from the 23rd, on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Conference Committee conformed to the House. We have no problems and ask that it be considered.
All right. The Conference Committee moves that we adopt the Conference Committee report. Any discussion of the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee report is adopted. House Bill 770 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 770, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded in the green on House Bill 770's report.
Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. All right. Let's take up some of these third reading calendars that have amendments here. See where we get. This is third reading calendar number 46. Largely out of Education, Energy, and the Environment, it looks like. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 206, Delegate Ivy, Early Childhood Kindergarten, Pre-Kindergarten Programs, Montessori Schools and Programs.
House Bill 206 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 206, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 230, Delegate Love, Department of the Environment, Zero Emission Medium and Heavy Duty Vehicles Regulations, Clean Trucks Act of 2023.
House Bill 230 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 230, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 410, Delegate Rosenberg, Election Reform Act of 2023.
House Bill 410 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 410, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 503, Delegate Stein, Natural Resources Green Space Equity Program Establishment.
House Bill 503 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 39 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 503, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 692, Delegate Crosby, Public Service Commission Certificates of Public Convenience and Necessity, Local Permits.
House Bill 692 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 692, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 778, Montgomery County Delegation and Prince George's County Delegation, Montgomery County by County Agencies Commissioner Discipline Disclosures Training and Ethics, MC/PG 105-23.
House Bill 778 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 778, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 976, Delegate Henson, Mold Assessment and Remediation Standards.
House Bill 976 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if I could just ask the floor leader to yield for a question on this bill.
Floor leader on House Bill 976, Mold. Senator from Frederick. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. Has this bill been amended down to a work group?
Yes.
And what are we hoping to find in this work group?
Uniform standards
For mold remediation.
for mold detection and remediation, yes.
I asked the question because first I looked at the bill and then realized it was a work group.
Right.
But we don't already have sort of basic industry standards for mold remediation? Was that the test? I should ask, was that the testimony? I'm not expecting all of us to know, because I don't know, but I would have thought there was.
Apparently, there are some information gaps as to standardization.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. I wanted to confirm it was a work group. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
Mr. President, I'm probably just going to stick with, I haven't had a chance to vote on this yet. Some of these bills I know it feels like we vote 4 or 5 times because of the different concurrences. I'm actually going to vote no on this. I feel like there's a constant move to add more and more burden on people that are dealing in this space, whether it's people who rent out properties or people who work work in this field. I'm not sure we need a work group to tell us tell us basic standards of remediation and assessment. I think that's something that private industry can handle and consumers can research. So I'm going to vote no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, on the bill, any further discussion? If not, third reading, final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 976 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 982, the Speaker, State Employees Programs and Scholarships for Human Services, Careers, and Probation Agents and State Contributions to Supplemental Retirement Plans.
House Bill 982 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 982, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1005, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Archery Hunting Safety Zone and Position of Archery Hunting, Howard County 15-23.
House Bill 1005 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1005, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
There we go. House Bill 1026, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Land Use, Development of Neglected Property, PG 406-23.
House Bill 1026 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 47 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1026, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1237, Delegate Kaufman, Special Education, Judicial Actions, Attorney's Fees, and Related Costs.
House Bill 1237 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1237, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Hey, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator from District 2.
House Bill 503 from green to red, please.
503, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Any further? If not, we've got some more out of energy, education, energy, and the environment. These look like alcohol. Wait, what are these? We'll see. Calendar 47. Clerk will read the first bill. Local bills.
House Bill 175, Baltimore County Delegation, Baltimore County Board of Education, Student Member Voting and Training.
House Bill 175 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 175, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 210, Baltimore County Delegation, Baltimore County Board of Education, Member Elections and Appointments.
House Bill 210 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 210, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 348, Baltimore County Delegation, Baltimore County School Board Nominating Commission, Vacancy Procedures.
House Bill 348 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 348, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 432, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Chief Executive Officer of the Public School System, alterations to title and search, committee requirements PG 503-23. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 432 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 432 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 437, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Public Schools, Office of Integrity and Compliance Establishment, PG 501-23.
House Bill 437 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 437 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 636, Delegate Zone Public Information Act, inspection of email addresses and telephone numbers.
House Bill 636 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 636 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 696, Delegate Chi, Public Service Commission, Cybersecurity Staffing and Assessments, Critical Infrastructure, Cybersecurity Act of 2023.
House Bill 969 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 969 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1051, Delegate Kaiser, Public Information Act, Decisions of the State Public Information Act Compliance Board Appeals.
House Bill 1051 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1051 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1162, Delegate Griffith, study on the utilization of the expedited license process for service members, veterans, and military spouses.
House Bill 1162 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1162 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1200, Delegate D. Jones, Elections, Election Judges, Minimum Compensation.
House Bill 1200 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1200 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1225, Delegate Howard, Real Estate Brokers, Disability or Death, Termination of an Employment of a Broker.
House Bill 1225 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1225 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Senator from the 37th, followed by the 35th, and then the 11th. 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded on House Bill 969 in the red. So I'm recorded green. I'd like to be recorded in the red on House Bill 969.
969 in the red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 35th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be in the red on House Bill 969.
969 in the red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 11th, followed by the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded in the green for House Bill 210, please.
210 in the green. In the green. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from District 1.
House Bill 503 from green to red.
503.
Yes, sir.
Green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from Carroll County.
HB 175 from green to red.
175 green to red.
And I guess while I'm up, HB 969 green to red.
969 green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 969 from green to red, please.
969 green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's go to third reading calendar number 48. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 290, Delegate Bagnell, Public Health Dental Services Access.
All right, House Bill 290 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 290 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 321, Delegate Rosenberg, Cigarette Restitution Fund Payments for Sale and Marketing of Electronic Smoking Use Devices Use.
House Bill 321 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 321 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 391, Delegate Healy, Vehicle Laws, Parking Enforcement Citations.
House Bill 391 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 391 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 435, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 210, Indian Head Highway PG 304-23.
House Bill 435 is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel.
Yeah, if the floor leader would yield.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator from Prince George's. Senator may proceed.
Yeah, just
Yes, thank you.
I was following up actually with the vice chair. I noticed in here it says mobile speed cameras. Is there any other place that we use mobile, or is this new?
I don't know if it's new or not, but we requested that because on 210, because of the way 210 is made, it's been used for a raceway. Generally with only 2 cameras, everyone knows when to slow down, and it's causing more accidents when they're in the same place. People are hitting their brakes and someone comes up behind them. It's such a large stretch of road that the citizens asked that we would make them or make sure that they are in different places. One, hopefully to stop some of that, but 2, it's just ineffective because they know where the 2 are and everything bottlenecks there, and we really do not get what the desired result. On 210, they have listed, AAA have said that we have the 6th worst traffic problems and congestion and accidents in the nation, the 6th worst. And so this is our way of trying to save some lives utilizing the speed cameras.
And I can appreciate that. I just know in previous speed cameras, a lot of them would give them like a 3-month notice of warnings so they know they're there. And I know Anne Arundel County has just adopted speed cameras. So I'm wondering if this is the new way of doing it, how that, I guess there's no warning, or is there plan on warnings with mobile? I guess the first question was, I don't know if the vice chair would, because I had asked if he could look into that, if you know this is the first time.
I did, and with apologies, I did not relay it to the floor leader after our discussion, so I apologize to the floor leader for neglecting to mention that. So in our code, will be the first time we allow mobile on a specific named road, but we do allow mobile in other circumstances. For example, in work zones, we allow mobile. Previously, we delegated to Montgomery County their own speed camera system, and we allow them to use mobile wherever they choose. So this will be the first time that it's specifically in Maryland statute, but related to a specific road, but it is certainly allowed and is in the practice both in Montgomery County and in work zones throughout the state.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We are, Chair recognizes Senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader rise for just a quick question?
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Was there a county delegation letter of support?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. On the bill, any further discussion? This is House Bill 435 on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes Senator from District 1 on the bill.
I was just going to explain my vote.
Oh, just give us one moment. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Chair recognizes Senator from District 1 as 2 minutes explains vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So with this being a speed monitoring system bill, I would normally vote in the red. I'm not very fond of those. But I do know that this is a local bill, and I support local legislation that is brought to this body. So therefore, a proud green will be going up for this bill. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 435, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Do we have more on that calendar?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 529, Delegate Rosenberg, Gaming Video Lottery Terminals, Local Impact Grants, Baltimore City.
House Bill 529 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 529 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 608, Delegate Lehman, Human Relations, Housing Discrimination Service Dogs.
House Bill 608 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 608 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 984, Delegate J. Lewis, Public Employees Relations Act.
House Bill 984 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 984 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1079, Prince George's County Delegation, Prince George's County Board of Education and School System Revisions, PG 502-23.
House Bill 1079 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1079 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1165, Delegate Wilson, Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, Technical Corrections and Clarifications.
House Bill 1165 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1165 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1174, Calvert County Delegation, Calvert County Civil Infractions, Prosecutorial Designations.
House Bill 1174 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1174 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. On House Bill 529, I'd like to be recorded in green.
529 in the green. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from District 4.
House Bill 984, green to red. Mr. President.
984, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 37th.
I'd like to be recorded in the red for House Bill 175.
175 in the red. Any objections? Without any objections, so ordered. All right, we missed this. We were supposed to do it at the end of the calendar, the concurrence calendar. This is Senate Bill 648. Senate Bill 648. This is one we were looking for the record of. If clerk can read the bill.
Senate Bill 648, Senator Rosapep, Electronic Health Networks and Electronic Medical Records, Nursing Homes, Release of Records.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 648 authorizes a nursing home that contracts with or uses an electronic health network or electronic medical record vendor to direct the vendor to release patient medical records or electronic health care transactions to a business associate of the nursing home. The House amendment struck provisions stating that the release of records and transactions is permitted with the consent of the patient or the patient's personal representative, and prohibiting the charging of a fee to a business associate contracted with the state designated health information exchange unless the fee is approved by the exchange. And so, Mr. President, we concurred with the House amendments. We move to concur.
All right, the chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any objections? If not, Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 648 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 648 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. We've got a consent calendar number 45, mainly out of B&T it looks like. Clerk will read the calendar. These are third readers.
third reading House Bill calendar number 45, consent number 15.
All right, these are third reading bills on a third reading for final passage. Senators, are there any bills that senators would like to separate? Any discussion? If not, on the consent calendar, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. All right, we've got a third reading, one more, calendar number 50. Not one more for the moment, but at least for now. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1300, Chair, Judiciary Committee, Family Law, Child Care, Criminal Background Investigations.
House Bill 1300 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1300, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We have some House bills. Let's just get these through to the rules. This is report number 10. Clerk will read the bills.
Rules Report Number 10, House Bill 233, Delegate Grammar, Criminal Law, Child Pornography, Accessing, Intentionally
Majority Leader
Rearrange
moves, so we consider the reading of the bills. They will be re-referred to their appropriate standing committees. All right, let's see. This is another re-referral. This is report on rules number 11.
Senate Bill, Senate Bill 930, Senator McKay, Motor Vehicles, Recreational Vehicle Dealer Agreements to Judicial Proceedings.
All right, the bill will be re-referred to its appropriate standing committee. All right, we have a report out of Finance, report number 61, one bill. It's a Senate bill. Let's see if we can move it along. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 387, Senator Lewis Young, Task Force on Reducing Energy Department Wait Times, favorable with 3 amendments.
All right, Chair recognizes Senator from Anne Arundel as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 387 as amended is similar to House Bill 274 as it passed the House. The bill establishes the task force on reducing emergency department wait times in order to identify root causes of overly long wait times in emergency departments in the state. As you know, we have the longest wait times in the country. The 3 amendments are technical, conforming, and specify that there are 16 members of the task force. 15, there's a correction, there are 15 members of the task force. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 387 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to Budget and Tax, report number 42.
House Bill 524, Chair Appropriations, Maryland Stadium Authority, Camden Yard Sports Facilities Funds, and Bus Rapid Transit Fund.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Capital Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As House Bill 524 came in, colleagues, it was technical. It made changes to the ability to allow a fund to utilize revenue bonds instead of taxpayer paid bonds. As amended as well, it modifies the bus rapid transit system to allow them to utilize revenue bonds as well. It adds two additional members to the Maryland Stadium Authority, and also modifies the lines when it comes to the Blue Line corridor. There looks like there was one amendment, and the amendment makes technical changes to the bill and again adds the 2 members to the standing authority. I would move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment, the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 524 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 631, Delegate Stein, Natural Resources, Land Conservation, Establishment of the Goals and Programs, Maryland the Beautiful Act, favorable of 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 30 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 631 is very similar to Senate Bill 470, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. There were just some amendments requested by the department overseeing the implementation of the bill, so that's what's incorporated in both bills moving forward, making some technical changes and things like that. Move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 631 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to the Committee on Judicial Proceedings. This is report number 46. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 416, Delegate Ampry, Resources and Education for All Prisons, REAP Act, favorable of 2 amendments.
All right, this is House Bill 416. Chair recognizes the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill increases from 3 to 6 the number of speed. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Here we are. As amended, this bill requires the Maryland Department of Labor to set goals for the number of inmates in education programs, establish a tracking system for the number of inmates in these programs, and establish a tracking system for the progress of inmates in education programs as specified. And number 4, adopt regulations to carry out these provisions. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one is technical. The second one limits the bill to inmates in state correctional facilities, creates the Prison Education Fund, Reform Commission, and moves the effective date of the bill to July 1, 2023. I move for a favorable report on the bill and the amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the minority whip on the amendments.
Do you mind if I'd like to ask the floor leader if he'd yield?
Floor to yield. Senator may proceed.
Yes.
So the bill as amended, does it deal with, is the fiscal note on this, it said it's about $500,000 a year. Is that still accurate, or does the amendment?
As amended, just a moment. I should have a fiscal.
It's okay if it does. I understand things cost money. I was just curious if it's.
I just have the original fiscal note, not before the.
Okay. Can I understand, so this is setting goals you talked about for the number of inmates in education programs, which I think that's great. We don't have any goals like that now in the prison system?
I'm not certain.
Okay. Is there anything?
It depends on the program, depends on, but for under this bill, this is a little different approach to that.
That they will set, the department
will set goals.
Will the department set the goal, or does the bill set the goal?
The department sets the goals.
And then they track, establishes a tracking system, which
Correct.
makes sense for the progress of
effectiveness, right.
of the inmates, prisoners in the system, and it's okay. Adopt regulations. I'm looking at my question really is what happens if we don't meet the goals set? First, that's my first question.
The bill does not specify that.
So the bill is asking to set goals, and then doesn't really specify. There's a report? I assume there's a report back to us for how it's going.
The commission will make the policy recommendations. And so there is a report.
The commission, is that the Maryland Higher Ed Commission? Is that when you refer to the commission?
It's the new commission that's being
Oh, it's established. Okay,
established by the bill, yes.
Okay, all right. It talks about trying to access Pell Grants, help with trying to access. So this bill is designed to create goals for folks that are in a prison system to be in, tracking. All that makes sense. But it's also going to be state resources are going to be used to try to help folks who are incarcerated access Pell Grants.
That's the bill. Yes, that's correct.
And those Pell Grants will be used to go to do online programs, I assume?
Online education programs, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It could be used at the prison when they leave.
Oh, I see. So when they leave, they could use it. They'd have access to Pell Grant.
Correct.
So okay. So this is a first-time thing. We've not done anything like this before. This is a first step in trying to, because we've always had programs where I know we've always had programs where prisoners are able to further their education,
GEDs and
go to
other
college.
kinds of things. Yes, but this is a bit different.
This is trying to set some goals. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, or excuse me, on the amendments, any further discussion? If not, any objections to the amendments? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 416 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 526, St. Mary's County Delegation, St. Mary's County Transfer of Child Support Unit and Personnel to the Child Support Administration. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 526 is a St. Mary's County delegation bill. The bill transfers the functions and powers, duties of the staff of the Child Support Unit of the Office of the State Attorney for the St. Mary's counties to the Child Support Administration of the Department of Human Services. There are no committee amendments, and the committee voted 9-0. Therefore, I recommend we adopt the committee's report. Favorable.
All right. Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? All in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 526 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 999, Delegate Farr, Corporations Filing Requirements for Dissolution and Termination of Registration or Qualification, Repeal. Favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill repeals a law prohibiting the State Department of Assessments and Taxation from accepting articles of dissolution of a corporation for recording unless certain reports have been filed. There's no comparable requirement for LLCs or partnerships or limited partnerships, so corporations are singled out. And this sort of discourages corporations from filing the reports. They just go out of business, and the records in the SDAT are left complicated. The bill also repeals the requirement that SDAT issue a certificate of termination to a foreign corporation if all required reports have been filed. The bill takes effect July 1st of this year. There are no committee amendments. There was no opposition to the bill. The bill passed 9-0 in committee. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 999 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1066, Delegate Vogel, Hate Crimes Commission on Hate Crimes Response and Prevention, Establishment. Favorable.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes the Commission on Hate Crime Response and Prevention within the Office of the Attorney General, which has to staff the commission. Commission members may not receive compensation but are entitled to reimbursement for expenses under the standard state travel regulations. Beginning fiscal 25, the governor must include funds in the annual budget to implement the bill, including funds to employ the full-time assistant attorney general, to staff the commission, and operate and maintain the office. The bill takes effect June 1st, 2023. There are no committee amendments. Move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1066 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1173, Delegate Stein, Motor Vehicles, Recreational Vehicle Dealer Agreements, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor
Thank you,
leader.
Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes a new regulatory framework that applies to recreational vehicle manufacturers, distributors, factory branches, and dealers. Among other things, the framework includes licensing requirements for recreational vehicle manufacturers, distributors, and factory branches. The bill establishes procedures, timelines, and requirements that govern written dealer agreements, warranties on recreational vehicles, and when damages or unreasonable miles are apparent on delivery of a recreational vehicle. The bill also establishes enforcement provisions. There's one committee amendment. The amendment makes technical changes to bring the bill more in line with the national model bill on which it is based. Mr. President, I move the amendment and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1173 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, we have three calendars left before we take a break. Go to 62. Out of Education, Energy, and the Environment. Actually, everything we have left is Education, Energy, and the Environment. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 255, Delegate Boyce, Maryland, Paint Stewardship, favorable with two amendments.
House Bill 255. 255. Paint. Senator from the 42nd has the cross file.
I do have the cross file. I don't have this folder. I believe it's identical to my cross file.
The vice chair, who's out of the room right now, is the
floor leader.
But
all right,
just put it to.
Let's put it to the end of the calendar.
Yes, that
special order to the end of the calendar.
Yes.
All right, without objection, so ordered. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 319, Delegate Stein, Pesticides, PFAS Testing Study, favorable.
Chair recognizes Senator from Frederick as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 319 is identical to Senate Bill 158, which was unanimously passed in the Senate. The bill requires the Maryland Department of Agriculture, in consultation with the Maryland Department of Environment, as well as the Maryland Department of Health and the EPA, to study the use of PFAS, also known as PFAS, in pesticides in the state. The department must report the findings by November 1st, 2023. There are no committee amendments and there is no fiscal impact. I move for a favorable reinforcement of the committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 319 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 723, Delegate Love, Natural Resources, Forest Preservation and Retention, favorable.
Chair recognizes the President Pro Tem as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 723 is identical to Senate Bill 526 as unanimously passed by the Senate. The bill modifies state law relating to forest preservation and retention by 1, modifying the state's policy to encourage the retention and sustainable management of forest lands, 2, making various changes under the Forest Conservation Act, and 3, requiring the Department of Natural Resources to establish a work group to evaluate and recommend incentives for private land owners to conserve forests. Committee amendments, there are no committee amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 723 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 914, Delegate Jackson, Public Service Commission Judicial Review Proceedings, favorable.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill clarifies some longstanding law that a judicial review of a final decision or order by the Public Service Commission must be instituted in a circuit court for a county in which the public service company that is a party to the proceeding provides service, or number 2, in the circuit court for Baltimore City. There are no committee amendments. I'd move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the minority leader on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Would it be okay to special order this to the next session? It just came out of voting session, I think, right before we walked in here.
Let's hear from the...
Yeah, that's fine.
No objections. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time at the following session. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1115, Delegate Adams, Libraries, Regional Resource Centers, Governance Requirements.
Recognizing Senator from the 38th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 115 is identical to Senate Bill 831 as passed by the Senate. This bill alters the governance structure of the 3 public libraries designated as regional resource centers on the Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland, and Western Maryland by establishing a governing board for each regional resource center. There are no committee amendments. I move adoption of the favorable report for HB 115.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1115 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. All right, we have a conference committee report. This is Senate Bill 781. 781. Got it. 781, Senate Bill 781. All right, clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 781, Senator Hester, Offshore Wind Energy State Goals and Procurement Promoting Offshore Wind Energy Resources Act.
Recognize the chair of the conference committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill establishes a mechanism for the procurement of 8.5 megawatts of offshore wind energy by 2031. The House amendments alter the way in which costs and benefits to ratepayers assessed, adds enhanced opportunities for public comment, modifies exemption procedures for developers receiving federal incentives, and includes preferences to the businesses under the Federal Department of Transportation's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program for businesses under a community benefit agreement. The Conference Committee amendments remove preferences to businesses under the Federal Department of Transportation's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program for businesses under a community benefit agreement, and removes a study originally designed to investigate the need for remedial measures to assist minority, women-owned, and disadvantaged businesses. I move for the adoption of the Conference Committee report.
All right, the chair of the conference committee moves that we adopt the conference committee report. Is there any discussion on the report? Any objections to the report? All in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The conference committee report is adopted. Senate Bill 781 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 781, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got another one out of Education, Energy, and the Environment. This is, out of 222. This is 222. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 222, Senator Augustine, Environment, Reducing Packaging Materials, Producer Responsibility.
Chair recognizes the Conference Committee Chair on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 222 lays the foundation for establishing a producer responsibility program in the state for packaging materials. As amended by the Conference Committee, the bill requires the Office of Recycling in the Maryland Department of the Environment to hire an independent consultant to conduct a statewide recycling needs assessment. The Office of Recycling must report the results of the assessment to the Governor and the General Assembly by July 30th, 2024. The amended bill also establishes the Producer Responsibility Advisory Council to provide advice and make recommendations regarding establishing and implementing a producer responsibility program. The Advisory Council must report its findings and recommendations to the Governor and specified committees of the General Assembly by December 1st, 2024. Finally, the amended bill requires the Department of the Environment to approve a single producer responsibility organization to represent the interests of producers in the development of the Producer Responsibility Program. Move adoption of the Conference Committee amendments.
All right, the chair of the Conference Committee moves that we adopt the Conference Committee report. Let's hear from the Minority Whip on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question for the floor leader, and just trying to be sure I understand. So I think the House, if I'm not mistaken, basically turned the whole thing into a study, and
yes.
And we were much more aggressive, and this is a meeting of the minds. So correct me if I'm wrong, we're establishing the councils, but then we're studying how the rest of it will go. Is that a fair way to summarize it, or?
There always was a plan to study our recycling system, and we're still going to do that. So we're still going to study our recycling system. What the House did was they changed the advisory council to be the entity that would, in essence, look at the study after the fact. So they did create the advisory council. What the conference committee has done is said, we still are going to do the study. We want to make sure that that study is done by an outside entity that has the expertise in the area. But then we're also going to, actually establish the producer responsibility organization now. And so that folks will start to become a part of the PRO, which was a part of the bill that we had that came out of the Senate. And then we are also, because of the change of the role of the advisory council now, because the advisory council is going to help with the Department of the Environment, who is standing up the program, we also changed some of the composition of that producer responsibility advisory council to include the producers itself. The last thing that we did that the House took out that this now does incorporate is that the House, because there was no longer going to be a producer responsibility organization, they also struck the language which defined what a producer was. This brings that information back because that's the stuff that we had actually been really working hard over the last 2 years to get to those compromises, to be able to come up with the definition of the producers, minus those folks who needed to be exempted for various reasons that we worked on.
Thank you very much. That's a helpful explanation. And of course, it's, for the benefit of the body, sometimes when we have things come back to the floor, we have 10 pages of amendments, which is just the way it goes in the closing days. But so there will be one PRO. Is there still the potential for more PROs in the future, or is it going to basically stick to one PRO as we've passed this?
The way since we're going from what the House did, Senator, the initial part here sets up the single PRO. It doesn't yet contemplate, because that was struck, that language that we had, as I recall it, because it would have been struck when it came back over, the language about creating additional PROs, because it done away with the PRO, whereas these amendments simply create the single PRO.
Right, and so we could come back in the future if there's a need for other things. And then finally, Mr. President, thank you. Finally, we're looking at the private companies will join the PRO. That's the
yes.
If a company, just remind me, if a company is operating in the state, like they're selling in the state, they're a producer from out of state, and they don't join the PRO, what happens?
We had, as you may recall, we did have penalty provisions. Now this will fall to the department. The department has that responsibility to bring them and set it up. And this is to occur actually before we come back for the next session. So we'll be able to address it if we do have those problems or if folks have not joined the PRO. But that language was taken out in the House that kind of created that framework because this is now taking initial steps to set it up, and so it doesn't incorporate that last piece.
Okay, and then the other states that have done this, it's just a different. There's the 3 or 4 other states that have done this. They've done something maybe similar, but not exactly the same, just because of the vagaries of their system. Probably
that is correct. Each is done differently based on their systems.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mr. President Pro Tem. Mr. President, I am going to continue with my no vote on this bill. I do appreciate the explanation. I do think it's good we slowed it down a little bit as far as the full implementation. Have some concerns about costs being passed to the consumers. I know the argument as to why we're doing this and that it could theoretically save money in the long term on recycling programs and help with recycling. I do have some other questions. I do appreciate the response. I think there's some questions about if a company does or doesn't join this, what will happen and how that will impact the market. But Mr. President, thank you for the time, and I am going to be voting red on this bill.
All right, on the report, any further discussion on the report? All in favor of the report say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee report is adopted. Senate Bill 222 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 222, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We got that one last bill, and then we're going to break. The one that we had to, from the previous calendar, second reader. If we could pull up.
House Bill 255, Delegate Boyce, Maryland Paint Stewardship, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, House Bill 255 is identical to Senate Bill 260, which establishes a recycling program for our paint cans and our paint. Move the adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we've talked about this a number of times, but with the amendment still on it, could I lay this bill over under the rule?
I think we have time if there's no objections.
Yeah, okay.
No, all right, without objection, we'll lay the bill over to the appropriate time for the next session, but we're going to move through it for the next session. In the next session, we're getting to it. All right, we got a break. I think everybody's feeling a little spent, so appreciate the hard work. We were in a very, very good place. We got a lot left, but we're in a good spot, so we'll break here. We're looking at a 4:30. 4:30 is what we're looking at, unless there's more time needed. Looks like there's a bid for 5. Minority leader is asking for 11:55 for some reason. So no, 5. All right. All right. We'll do a 5. I think 5 is okay. It'll be a real 5 o'clock. This is a real 5 o'clock. We're going to start the moment we have 24 in the room. We are starting at 5 o'clock. So that should be at 4:55. You know. All right. So 5 o'clock, real 5 o'clock, hard 5 o'clock. Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 4:15 for a brief voting session.
4:15. All right, let's hear from Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Yeah, the AAA committee will meet at 3 o'clock for a short, for one bill hearing on important bi-county bill, and then we're going to continue our conversation where we left off on another big bill after that, Mr. President. 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. All right. Budget and tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and tax will meet immediately after session in the Silver Room.
All right. Immediately after session, judicial proceedings. Real 5 o'clock.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you very much. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 3:45 for a bill hearing, followed by a voting session.
3:45. All right. Any other announcements? The chamber will be secured all day today throughout, so if you want to leave anything here, please feel free. Chair recognizes the chair of the Baltimore County Delegation.
Thank you very much. Right after we leave the floor, we're going to take our picture that was delayed from earlier since we all had committee meetings.
All right. Picture forthwith. Any further announcements? All right. Let's go ahead and do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Without objection, so ordered, a real 5 o'clock. Have a good afternoon.